So I think it's 6:30 and we can start on time as promised. So with this, I would like to start. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, buenos dias, bonjour, depending upon the part of the globe and the time zone you're joining us from. We welcome you to this webinar titled Know the IBDP Visual Arts e-Portfolio. I'm Rahul Singh and I'm the moderator for this webinar. Having said that, I would like to start with a brief introduction of Art Journal Foundation. Art Journal Foundation is a not-for-profit, independent organization that supports the process, practice, and exploration of art across the globe. Art Journal Foundation believes that art and culture are essential foundations to the community and a necessity for a more equitable and just world. As facilitators, catalysts, and provocateurs in the field, Art Journal Foundation supports critical investigations, explorations, and experiments that push boundaries of knowledge and practice and challenge dominant narratives. It's a foundation aimed at becoming a leading global platform of higher learning by developing and helping the creators of tomorrow who can shoulder the challenges of globally responsible and ethical leadership in the 21st century. And also by focusing research, scholarly, and creative endeavors that contribute to the creation of new knowledge at the frontiers of specialized areas, as well as at the interface of diverse disciplines. With this, I would like to move on to the objective of this webinar. IBDP Visual Arts is a course spread over 2 years. There are various components that are a part of this discipline. The webinar aims to give a brief understanding of the subject and the IB requirements for the submission. And yes, we have planned this on popular demand as per the request by many of the facilitators in the previous webinar on the MYP portfolios. IBDP Visual Arts expert facilitators will share their experiences with us. The views and opinions of this webinar are based on the best practices and in no way define it as the unique process to be followed. They can be altered and modified based on your requirements. Having said that, I would like to introduce our first speaker of the day, Ms. Nirupama Sibal. Ms. Nirupama graduated with a Master's in Fine Arts degree from the Academy of Art University in San Francisco, USA, specialization in drawing and painting. Nirupama has over 20 years of experience in teaching in international schools in Dubai. She's a passionate teacher and artist who has participated in various exhibitions within Dubai. Nirupama started with teaching the IGCSE curriculum and graduated to the IBDP program in 2007. She has recently retired from heading the visual art department at Dubai International Academy to relocate to India. She's also an IBDP Visual Arts examiner. As an artist, she's best known for her expressionist self-portraiture, where she's commenting on life, her attitude, and learning through her experiences. Her work compares the beauty of life and works as a visual diary. Her style is realistic with a mixture of soft brush strokes and expressive mark making using brush as a tool. Nirupama works with various mediums with an intent for the viewer to connect with her work at a personal level. Welcome to the webinar, Nirupama.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Good morning, whatever the time zone is. Very nice to see all of you here and look forward to some interesting interaction.
Thank you, Nirupama. Let me introduce Mr. Amitabh Rajan, our next speaker for the day. Mr. Amitabh Rajan is a Cambridge and IB Diploma Program Visual Arts Facilitator and Head of Department at Chiri Goenka World School, Delhi, India. An expert art critic, Mr. Rajan is an IB Diploma Program Visual Arts Examiner and SAIBSA Workshop Leader. He has participated in various sculpture camps, has been selected and achieved accolades in regional and national level art exhibitions. Amitabh has also been a part of various group exhibitions and has worked as a freelance artist with various organizations. His passion for teaching and art and many years of experience has helped his students achieve the best results in their diploma program. He's also conducted various workshops for art enthusiasts and is a workshop leader at Rajiv Gandhi Foundation, Delhi. Without further ado, let's invite our guest speakers for their insights into the webinar for today. I would request the audience to keep the mics muted and type in their questions in the chat section so that our speakers can answer the questions towards the end of the session. Over to you, Nirupama.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Well, I'll just quickly introduce the program to you. Can we have the next slide, please? When we're talking about the visual arts IBDP program, there are an overall objectives of the IBDP is communicating visual arts in context, visual arts in methods, and communicating the, sorry, I'm not able to see this whole thing. How's it going? There we go, right. Communicating visual arts. So when we're talking about visual arts in context, what does that actually mean? This is about the why of art. Why do different cultures make art? What does it tell us about our history? What does it tell us about us? Are there rules in making art? Can I break them? The students will write and will experiment with media to develop artworks in response to their research. So when we're looking at the overall objective in context, this is what is expected within the program. When we talk about visual arts methods, this is making. This is where the making of the artworks comes in. In other words, all the activities that the students would expect to do in the studio using wide range of mediums, from photography to digital manipulation, to paintings, to sculpture, installation, textiles, etc., etc. This course encourages them to explore different ways of making art, not just what they are comfortable with. So the exploration of different mediums is very, very essential over here. When we're exploring different mediums, we are also exploring or exposing the students to various thought processes, various artists and their styles. So there's a lot that really goes on within this component. We're looking at communicating visual arts. What do we understand by communicating over here? This is how we look at artwork and how we talk and write about it. So this is where critical analysis comes in, understanding of the artist's work, and also commenting on the student's thought process. The student will produce artworks from an exhibition and then decide how best to present the exhibition so that it makes an impact on the viewer. So what is the whole point of the exhibition needs to be explored and expressed. The exhibition talks about that. Okay, can we have the next slide, please? Now, visual arts IBDP is divided into three components. So we've got the comparative study, which is 20% of the marks. Then we've got the process portfolio and the exhibition, which is 40% marks. So in total, we've got 100%, right? So 20% for comparative, 40% for process portfolio, and 40% for the exhibition. Now, when we're looking at comparative study, this is a critical and contextual investigation. So what do we understand by that? Here, the students will choose art and artifacts from different artists and from different cultures to analyze and compare. So the students are required to look at minimum 2 artists and 3 artworks, or they can look at 3 artists and 3 artworks. So if the student is from a higher level, they will show how these artists influence their work, which is criteria F. Standard level students do not need to address criteria F. For HL, we've got 10 to 15 screens, which examine and compare at least 3 artworks from contrasting cultures, 3 to 5 screens, which analyze how their work has been influenced by the artist they've researched. And then there is an end product that they would create by that influence. So SL has got 10 to 15 screens, which examine and compare at least 3 artworks from contrasting arts. So basically, SL and HL do similar things. The only difference is that SL, you have to create a final product that is influenced by the artist. And when they're creating the product, that means it could be a drawing, a painting, it could be sculpture, it could be photography, it can be any medium that the student wants to work with. The challenges that we've noticed over a period of time that the students come across, and I think the teachers really need to help newer teachers struggle with this, is a selection of artists. How are the artists being connected to the theme of the students, and also interpreting function and purpose of the selected pieces. So these are a few areas where the students struggle, and the teachers need to pay more attention to the students to be able to develop over here. Is there anything that you would like to add in, Mr. Amitabh?
No, ma'am. Actually, you had said all the things. I don't think so. Anything left to add.
So,
Uh, Obviously, one point. I think the citation, which is very important in comparative study, which should be both the places. One, when a student is adding bibliography, but as well as wherever the screen they are using any content or reference picture, they must add on the same slide the citation. That is also important.
in-text citation is essential, and they should be using an MLA 8 format. It is advised, right? Much better that way. So very necessary to have in-text citation of all the information they're getting, especially for the images, and also the information they're getting in. I advise my students to put their work through Turnitin. So if there's any scope of plagiarism, it is sorted out before submission time. Now, looking at comparative essay, let's just quickly discuss the marking criteria. So when we're looking at criteria A, which is identification and analysis of formal qualities, what is expected out of the students over here? What are the examiners looking for to mark? Is how has the artist used elements and principles of art in their work? Here, the use of artist vocabulary is essential. So it is very important for the students to really understand how to use artist terminology in terms of elements and principles of art. So how is line being used? What kind of lines, for example, what kind of lines have been used? What kind of emotion is being depicted in the work? How is the emotion being depicted? So is color there? What kind of colors are there? So it has to be a very explanatory work here. Analysis, when looking at criteria B, which is analysis and understanding of function and purpose. Now, this is another area where students really lose out mark because they don't understand what do you mean by function and purpose. Now, function of an artwork can be plenty. So it could be for decorative function, it could be for a practical function it can have. So various functions, one artwork can have various functions, right? Purpose can be conceptual, emotional, political, etc. They need to think about, does it communicate a message? So these are some questions they need to really think about. Does it communicate a message? Does it contain symbolism? What does it mean? So looking at these questions, research is very important related to the time the artwork was created. So when we're talking about related to the time it was created, why was it created? For instance, if you're looking at the Spanish War and we're looking at Guernica, what was the function and purpose of Guernica created by Pablo Picasso? Am I right? Yes, I think. Sorry, if I'm making a mistake with the artist, please. I have a tendency to forget artists sometimes. So when we're looking at Guernica, why was Guernica created? What was the emotion within it? What inspired him? So what was happening in the political time of the creation? So all of these things need to be addressed. Criteria C, analyzing and evaluation of cultural significance. So when we're talking about cultural significance of the selected artworks, objects and artifacts within the specific context in which they were created, such as the culture, socio-political, historical significance of the work with respect to the original audience and purpose, and as well as contemporary audience. So if you're looking at an artwork which was created a few hundred years ago, what was the political, social, economic structure of the work then? And also, how is it being addressed now? What is the significance of that artwork now? How does the audience see it? How does the audience relate to it? Why does that happen? So this area, again, when you're looking at cultural significance, it is not just a two-liner or a three-liner. There is a whole lot of research that needs to be done. Making comparisons and connections. Here we're looking at identification and critical analysis of the connections, similarities, and difference between the selected artworks, objects, and artifacts. The understanding of criteria A, B, and C are explored and enhanced. Venn diagram is advised. Now, again, there is no hard and fast rules, but these are pointers that are given to you through experience, what makes it easy for the examiner to see, and also for anybody else who is, even for the teacher and for the students, for example. So a lot of information is already gathered in criteria A, B, and C. Taking that in context, the comparison is made. So what I tell my students is you are looking at three comparisons over here. So you're looking at identification of formal qualities, there a comparison comes in, comparison of function and purpose, and cultural significance. So I advise them to have three Venn diagrams instead of putting all the information on one. Presentation of subject-specific language. Basically, it consists of use of appropriate subject-specific words that express the understanding of elements and principles of art. The overall use of artistic vocabulary within the CS is marked. There is no specific slide to be created for this. So this is just a clarity for especially the newer teachers. F is making connections to your own art making practice. Only HL students are required to address this criteria. Here, the students are looking at how has the artist's artworks influenced the students working as an artist, identifying some connections between one or more of the artist's work and in their own art making practices and processes. Over to you, Mr. Amitabh.
Rahul, can you go on the next slide, please? Yeah, so we have some challenges and some solutions. So basically, I pointed something, and I can understand that everyone has different kind of challenges according to their school system, according to their facilities, and so many other things. Because sometimes students comes from different background, education background, different boards, and they don't have research skills, they don't have art skills, they don't have other kind of skills. That time teachers has more challenge, teachers have more teachers have more challenge to handle those kids and manage all the visual art curriculum. So first I had pointed theme selection. So theme selection is the primary thing where a student has to choose a theme. So every teacher is doing differently to manage the theme selection. Sometimes students are going with more research, but even though they are not getting their theme, because maybe they are not from that background how to choose a theme, even though after so many research. So there is a solution. If teacher will talk too much with their student, discuss too much with their student about their theme, how can they conceive a theme? How can they decide a theme? For that, as we can see in the guideline also, it is given personal or cultural. That 2 point is very important. If a student are going with a more of research of either personal or the cultural aspects, so many artwork, artist research, it may influence to develop. But sometimes students are not getting from there. That time student has to go through their personal, and for that personal, teacher needs to discuss a lot related to all the area of a student, their personal life, their personal journeys, and all these things. Second point is the art skill. Sometimes there are major challenges with the students who hasn't that much of good skills in art. So in IBDP, the art is not skill is not that much important. There is more important idea, concepts, and their intentions. How on which point students are going to develop their art. So in that area, student can also go with different kind of art forms If a student is good in painting or sculpture installation, digital or any kind of work, they can do it. We have to promote for that. Sometimes there are issues with the school or teacher that there is no such facility. But if a student will go with a contemporary art, which is the solution. In the contemporary art world, there are many different kind of things which a student can find. If we will compare with the Renaissance time period or any art movement, that time period they had restricted material, canvas, oil color, some papers and watercolor kind of thing. But in present time, we have a multiple type of thing. Even if we will study the Dadaism, that time also we can see artists use very different kind of work to develop the artwork. Similarly, we have to go with the contemporary where we can find so many things with the plastic, paper, rubber, so many different kind of material used to develop the artwork. The third point is documentation of visual art. So I also realized while teaching, the student has major problem in documenting their visual art who hasn't that much of the background of artistic skills as well as their journey. So for that, digital platforms help them to develop their documentation. If they will go and see and meet with some artists through the digital platform, there are many artists who is on Instagram, those are contemporary because IB is not saying that you have to go only with the great to very well known artists, great artists. If some artist is practitioner and they are on any uh, platform, you can connect with them, know about the artist, their work style, and you can it can help students to document, develop their art. Uh, for the citation, now, Ms. Nurma, over to you to talk about some citations and other details.
All right. So when we were talking about selections of themes, etc., as Mr. Amitabh said, that it is very important for the students to make it personal. Again, when we're talking about personal, it could be cultural, it could be various themes which are linked personally. Now, what I tell my students is nobody knows you better than yourself. And also, I tell them, know your culture before you know any other. I am, well, for me, because I was teaching in Dubai, I had multicultural students. So I couldn't say that, okay, because you're an Indian, look at India, or the whole lot of them doing Indian work. No, it is specific to your culture. Know your culture, know yourself, know your family, talk about your emotional issues. It could be even a therapy course for them. The IB program could even turn into a therapy course for them. So it is up to the teacher how he or she guides the students to develop the theme they want to work with. Very important to overcome this challenge is to do a brainstorm. What I get my students to do is I get them, first thing to do is do a brainstorm on what makes them tick. Who are they? Where do they come from? What do they think about what is happening around them? What do they want to comment upon? So these are things when they are brainstorming, they are then able to document their thought process and then go back, which helps them to develop their themes and concepts. So this is, I think, extremely important when it comes to developing a theme. When we look at art skills again, like Mr. Amitabh said, there are students who come from various backgrounds. Some of them might not have the art skills that are required. And the IB program does not let you refuse such students. So how do you develop the ability for those students to be at par with the rest of the lot of students who are pretty strong, right? What I do with my students is I love the 50 variations. And when I'm doing 50 variations, I am exposing the students to every possible medium that they can think of or I can think of. And they have to pick up one object that they are emotionally attached to. It could be for whatever reason. When they are using that as an object, they are learning observational skills, they are learning composition, they are learning different art techniques, they are learning different art forms, different isms. And yes, we are looking at contemporary artworks, our artists, and I definitely advise them to look at art21.org. Beautiful platform for the students to look at for contemporary artists. And for historic artists, the artstory.org is again a fantastic platform for them to do their research. So these are two very strong platforms that I advise my students to kind of look at and use it for their research. Documentation of visual arts, yes, we're looking at a journal, and I get my students to work on a journal which is advised so that they can click photographs, they can scan them, and they can build on it. So there's a platform that they're working on, and every piece, every page is like an art form. So it can have handwritten text, it can have typed text. It's up to the student what they want. Every information that they add in their slides should have citations. So where are they getting the information from? Where are they getting the images from? In-text citation is very important. And as I said before, MLA 8 form, MLA 8 is a advisable citation program, and they can get onto, you can get onto Google and see how to do MLA 8, citation. So it's not very difficult. That is something that they can do. Right. Can we have the next slide? And over to you, Mr. Amitabh. Is there anything you would like to add in from here on?
No, we can go with the next, then we'll discuss. So we have process portfolio that is 40%, and that is given in the guide that HL student has to submit 13 to 25 slides and SL student has to submit 9 to 18 slides. So I always encourage a student to go with the maximum number of submissions. And each and every page in this should be separately, individually, it should be a perfect. Overall, obviously, will be perfect, but every page has to be with the photographs, content, citation, each and everything proper. And I always suggest a student to start with the journal and then transform in the process flow. So, Rahul, can we go on the next slide?
There is something which I would like to add in over here. When we are talking about, like we spoke about in the previous slide, looking at art skills. Remember, the students have to be creating artwork in 3 different art making. Well, I think for the last 2 years, this was not really essential because of COVID, but IBDP does want the students to be able to create their artworks in minimum 3 different ways from the art table that there is. So they can have drawing and painting, they should have something in textiles, they should have something in photography. The exploration in different mediums is essential for IBDP. Am I right?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, over to you. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. So in the process portfolio, basically we have to focus on these assessment criteria. Based on that, there will be marked. So first is the skill, technique, and process. So if we will go through the journal, we know how to go ahead with all the things. But here, the first assessment criteria and the mark is 12, the skill, technique, and process. So that should be in the portfolio. So which kind of the skills, which kind of technique and the process, how a student are, which level they are going to do it. So actually this should be in a way of sustainable. It shouldn't one work a student has done which is very good, another they are not doing, only filling with the documentation, writing, and they are not showing. So they have to show all the process of their skill, technique, and the process, however they are developing any artwork. And that is also not compulsory that whatever they are following in the process portfolio, the same thing they should add in the exhibition piece. It is not compulsory. So work across athlete require minimum number of the portfolio demonstration, sustained implementation, manipulation, range of process, right, solution. So this is also again the student has to select all the material whatever is given in the guideline that a student has to take out from three different tables, and HL student has to select at least three different art forms to explore, but a student can go more than the three art forms. Second is the critical investigation. That is very important because sometimes students are just going with one artist research, but it is not necessary. A student can go more than one artist, and I'm always appreciating a student to go with minimum three artists work research. And in that case, the student has many options to visit the artist, to contact the artist, to go different art studio to find the work. And in this time period, there are many options to go online also to visit the art gallery, museums, and different kind of artist studio to find how the practices are going on. So that is very important because the student has to mention in the process portfolio that how artist is developing their art form, how they are coming with the initial idea, how they are making layout, and all the process of doing that. The third point is communication of ideas and intentions in both visual and written form. Sometimes student is only writing, or sometimes students are filling their process portfolio with the visual image. But both the thing is important. So I'm always suggesting a student to just balance your each and every screen 50-50% with the visuals and the documentation. So that will help them to achieve a higher grade. Their portfolio will clearly articulate all the things, however, they have done with all the intention. And in the process portfolio, intention is very important. Whatever they are doing, that should be intentionally, not just they are doing. Because they have to show how they are developing all the forms and practice. So next is reviewing, refining, and reflecting in both visual and written form. This is also same kind of where the student has to review whatever they are doing, how they are refining and reflecting. So that is also mentioned visual and written forms, and this should be also 50-50% balance. And it is not necessary for this point they have to write separately on a page. It could be in all the slides where they feel there are requirement of reviewing. They can write the review. If they feel for development of any work they have to reflect and refine, they can do in that slides also. And the last point is presentation and subject specific language. So whenever we are teaching in the class, we have to always use those kind of terminology that will help the student to understand, and they will also keep in their mind while they work. So I think Nirupma ma'am, you can add more of the thing in this.
Right. So when we're talking about the process portfolio, there are a few things which worked for my students. Everybody has a different way of doing things. And I have tried both the ways. One, the way Mr. Amitabh does, and then I have brought in a different way of working. It actually depends on the students, for one. What I do with my students on general now is that, for instance, the students have created minimum of 8 artworks. Minimum of 8 channel. We're talking about 8 channel over here. So minimum of 8 artworks. What I tell them to do is that each artwork must reflect all the marking criteria. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 slides. 4 slides per artwork. So they are addressing all the marking criteria for all the works that they've done. This is what I have started doing with my students. So in that respect, if there are 8 works, each artwork is given 4 slides where all the marking criteria are addressed. Now, these artworks are generally used for the exhibition also. This is not a hard and fast rule. This is not a hard and fast rule, but it works. Another way of doing is, for instance, I had a student who had created a very large piece of work, which was 150 by 200 centimeters, which was a large piece of work that she had done. And in that, there was a whole variety of experiments that she had done, whereas composition is concerned, whereas mediums is concerned. It was a very, very well developed piece of work. So what we did for her process portfolio was that we used all of the development for the one artwork, which was a huge piece of work, for the process portfolio. And she scored a 7 on it because all of the marking criteria were addressed for one work. But the other works that she created were again part and parcel of the exhibition. So there were slides which showed that development of the other pieces. The connection that she was creating from one piece to the other was also shown in the process portfolio slides. And she managed a 7, which was fantastic. She really did a fabulous work, but she was not following the process of 4 slides per artwork. So because she had done such a fabulous work for that huge piece, one piece of work, we used all of her development that addressed the marking criteria. That is also a possibility. Okay. Now, when we're looking at subject-specific language, that goes for all the slides. All the slides are used, and sorry, that is reflected on all the slides. So, what is the vocabulary you're using is marked. Reviewing, refining, and reflecting. Again, what was the experiment done? What did you achieve? What were the issues that you had? What were the mistakes? How did you overcome them? What was compositional difficulties? How did you overcome those? So all of that has to be addressed in reviewing, refining, and reflecting, both visually as well as in text form. So teachers, as I'm explaining, if you have any questions, you could start typing them down, or you can keep them and ask them right at the end. That is perfectly fine. If there's anything else you would like to add, Mr. Amitabh?
Before that, Nirupama, could I interrupt you in between, Rahul? They're asking about, some people are asking to repeat those 2 websites that you mentioned, Art Story.
Yeah, the artstory.org and art21st.org and the artstory.com. Am I right on that?
Okay, I'll type that up.
Yeah. 21st century is just perfect. Art 21.
.org. Mr. Raghavan has also updated that. Please continue. Sorry for the interruption.
No worries.
So Rahul, can we go on the next slide? Because I think we had gone through all the things in this project.
So we can move on to the next, which is the exhibition, right?
No,
Yeah.
no. After this, this was there. Before this, there is any slide, or this slide was there?
I think after the process portfolio, we've got the exhibition, which is 40% marks. Now here, the HL students submit a curatorial rationale. This is for HL students. They do not exceed 700 words. The students submit 8 to 11 artworks. HL students submit exhibition text stating the title, medium, size, and intention for each selected artwork. They also have to write a rationale, which is uploaded on the IBDP portal when they are uploading their work. And that rationale does not exceed 500 characters. So that is very essential. SL students submit a curatorial rationale that does not exceed more than 400 words. SL students submit 4 to 7 works. SL students submit exhibition text stating the title, same thing as the HL students. They also have to write a blurb about their artwork, which does not exceed more than 500 characters. So that shouldn't come as a surprise to teachers when they're uploading and saying, oh my God, my students haven't written a blurb to support the work that they have created. So that is essential for the teachers to prepare the students for this upload. Is there anything you would like to add, Mr. Amitabh?
500 character, sometimes it is hardly 4 to 5 lines, no more than that. So most of the thing a student has to analyze in their curatorial rationale, because exhibition text is just about the particular art, where how they had developed.
Yeah, but you see, the thing is, those curatorial, the words that they're adding, the 500, the little blurb they're adding in, is like a gist to what the intention is of the artist. Why has this artist student created this work? What does the student want the audience to really see in the work, right? So if you have missed out something in the curatorial rationale, this kind of supports it to a certain extent.
Rahul, can we go on the next slide?
Actually, we missed out on one slide right before this one for you. I think we'll move on to the last one.
Because that was some important points for process portfolio.
Yes, exactly.
I think we have to discuss. So most of the thing we had discussed while we were talking about the process portfolio assessment criteria. So visual art journal is very important, because sometimes teachers and students, they start with a direct process portfolio. But this is not the right way. Every student has to start with their visual art journal, the manual scripts as well as digital script. So whatever they have, they can capture in manually as well as digitally. So whenever they will develop their process portfolio, they have to take it, the content and pictures and scan copy from the visual art journal, and then they have to update their process portfolio. Second thing, concept, ideas, and intention. That should be exactly there, should be there in the process portfolio. Sometimes there is no intentions why a student is making process portfolio. They are just collecting the data and then filling in the process portfolio. So that shouldn't be there. That should be go with the concepts and idea, whatever they are developing, whatever they are doing. Third point is heading and mind map. So sometimes what is happening, teachers and students both are understanding that headings is just a heading for the beginning, and mind map is also for the beginning. But it is not true. Heading is in the whole portfolio, because as we discussed, the every slide is individual slide, separate slides. So you have to use headings for each and every pages. It could be a small heading, subheading kind of, and mind map also you can make 2 to 3 times mind map, because once you started with the mind map in the beginning, it is not necessary it will go the same planning, and mind map will go till end. So maybe after 6 months or 1 year, you have some different mind map, different planning. You can add one more mind map. You can add mind map according to your different works also. So that is also important. Citation, referencing photographs and content. So in the process portfolio also the same way, however, we have to do with the comparative study, we have to use the citation, referencing for photographs and content if we are using from anywhere. So this is some important point that will help to develop more the process portfolio.
There is one thing I would like to add in which really worked for my students is in their process for in their journal, art journals. Whenever we are having discussions or feedback is given, I would put it on a post-it and stick it into their art journal. So that kind of stays there. And when the students are working, that feedback comes handy. When there is a discussion going on with the peers, again, what is the feedback that the peers are giving you for your work? That again is added on post-its and put into their art journals. So that kind of really works in developing the concept, developing the composition, there's so much of development that takes place on basis of these feedbacks. And these feedbacks, again, are put into their process portfolio slides. And that really works because the examiner is seeing there's an interaction with the peers, there's an interaction with the teachers, what's the feedback being given to them, how has the student actually developed and overcome these issues. So all of that kind of really helps in the development and in the whole process of developing. That I found really works very well for the students, and the teachers are more than, they can use it if it works for them too. Anything else you'd like to add in?
No, I think that is okay. You can go on the next slide.
No, we finished with the exhibition.
Yeah, in the exhibition, again, we have assessment criteria which we have to follow, and sometimes it is quite difficult to understand coherent body of the work. Sometimes students are not getting what is coherent body of the work. So for that purpose, I am always suggesting them to go with any artist and see their 10 artwork. Suppose you are taking a Van Gogh, just take Van Gogh 10 artwork and then find the coherence among the 10 artwork. How can we make the connection among all his artwork? Similarly, whatever artist and artwork they are selecting, they should select more artwork to understand the coherence. And a student has to also develop in the same way. They have to avoid the repetition kind of work, but there should be coherence. Second is technical competence. So the technical competence is, as we also discussed, that skill is not exactly the technical competence. Technical competence means how they are using the material. If there is a canvas and a student is using any particular material on canvas, oil, acrylic or water, whatever material. So how they are using that material, that is important. Even not only the painting, but in a sculpture or any different kind of form of art, if a student is using, they should understand the material. If they are using plastic, they should understand the characteristics of plastic, how the plastics they can utilize in the form of art. So that technical thing they have to understand, not only the skills, how finishing and good kind of artwork they are making. In the conceptual qualities, again, a student has to go with the concept which they had taken from the beginning, and sometimes the concept can be changed according to their artwork, but it should be aligned. It shouldn't be suddenly a new concept and it is not going with artwork, because sometimes coherent body of the work and conceptual qualities interconnected. So if work has coherence and concept, then it will look aligned and it will go with one exhibition work. Because sometimes we see the group exhibition and sometimes we see solo exhibition. So we can make the difference in the group exhibition that this work is made by some different artists and another work is made by some different artists. But in solo exhibition, we can find that all the artwork is made by one artist because of the coherence, because of the conceptual quality. So when we are visiting any gallery or online or offline, we have to understand and we have to teach a student to understand the conceptual qualities, how it can work. And the last is the curatorial rational, how the curatorial rational will go with the exhibition work, where a student has to write all the curatorial practices which we were talking about, and they have to also write the exhibition text where they will justify their work, whatever they made, how they displayed in the exhibition. So there are minor difference for SL and HL. HL student has to write about the audience interactions, but SLS student is not necessary for SLS student. I think, ma'am, you can add more in this.
Like we were talking about the curatorial rationale over here. it is very important for them to look at the methods of display. What are the different methods of display? How are they going to be displaying their work? Is it going to be historic in the sense this is the first piece you created and then moved on to the second, third, fourth, or is it going to be according to a concept? So that is something that needs to be addressed very specifically in the curatorial. What is the artist or what is the student wanting to communicate to the viewers? What is the intention? How has the artist been inspired by different artists to achieve or has been able to create that whole body of work, right? So these are few things that need to be addressed very specifically in the curatorial. A lot of students miss out on that. A lot of students start writing what were the techniques they used. You know, they talk about, there's a whole lot of unnecessary explanation of how the artwork was created in the curatorial, which is not really required. Is there anything else you would like to add?
No, I think we have to go on the next slide. Discussion is there. I think some important points.
So I think we are ready for a few important points for the exhibition. Avoid repetition. When we say avoid repetition, we mean you do not create one artwork and then repeat the same thing in different mediums. Am I right there?
Yeah. So sometimes students are, instead of making coherence, they are going with the repetition. The same work they are producing in a different way, or either they are going out of the coherence. So they have to balance what is coherence. That is very important and first point.
So
Second
avoid repetition means, for instance, you're looking at doing portraiture, doesn't mean you look at the same portrait and then you create it in a sculpture form and create it in a drawing and painting and create it in, it's not that one image that you create in different mediums. You have to explore the concept behind it. You have to explore the different techniques behind it, etc., etc. Composition is very important. We're looking at the formal qualities. Sorry, please carry on, Mr. Amitabh. I tend to take over.
So formal qualities. However, we had gone through in the comparative study to compare different artists' formal qualities. Similarly, here we have to also understand our formal qualities of our exhibition work. Whenever students are making their artwork, they have to also understand and analysis their formal qualities of their work. Is it in the same way, however, they were doing for the comparative study, or it is required to develop more? And we all know the formal qualities where is elements and principles of art is included.
Yeah, so when we're looking at what piece works together, they need to understand that. It's very important. Size, scale, technique, medium, concept. How is the artist going to be using formal qualities in space, in the area they're in? All of that things have to be kept in mind. It's not a haphazard haphazard way of putting the artworks. There has to be a systematic way of exhibiting, and that is something that the students need to realize. Also, they need to, when the selection of the exhibition is going on, they have to pay attention as to why are they selecting. I mean, they could have created 15, 20 pieces of work. Now, out of those 20 pieces of work, very intentionally, they have to pick up the artworks that are their best. You know, you don't just pick up a piece of work and say, all right, I think I can go with this. Let me just put it in because I've created an X number of works. No, they have to be able to pick and choose the best works that work together in a coherent manner when they are looking at formal qualities also. So that is something very, very important. Please, all yours.
Next, effective application and manipulation. So in the exhibition work, whatever they are making, they have to understand the effective application and manipulation, not directly clicking picture and just putting as an exhibition piece if they are developing with a concept and idea. So a student will get marks for photography, but there should be uh, effective application used if they are going with a photograph. If they are going with any other form of art where they have to show some uh, skills, other things, then that application should be effective and that should be manipulated and develop some art form instead of using direct draw.
So what I do is here, what I do with my students over here is I encourage them to do mixed media. So if it is photography, I get them to use the digital platform for it. So using Photoshop with it, using, print and paint, print and textiles. There are different ways of doing this. So even on photography, you could be doing so many things. It's not just a plain photograph, right? There has to be a more exciting reason for doing what you're doing. It's not that I'm saying photography is not the way to go, but yes, I mean, there can be some fantastic photographs that the students take, but can you take it further than just photography is something that I encourage my students to kind of do.
Next, I can talk about the visual concept. Many times we saw that students are good in writing and they are writing all the concepts, each and everything in detail, but it is not coming out visually. So we have to focus in the exhibition component that a student has to show the work visually, which is aligned and with the concepts. Not only in the curatorial rationale, it is showing that it is with more concepts, ideas, but the exhibition pieces are not showing the visually, it is conceptualized. So we have to focus on that area where work should be visually with the concept. Would you like to add something or may?
Yeah, no, you're good. Please carry on.
So selection and arrangement. So next is selection and arrangement. Whenever students are making, that time they are not in that frame of mind that which work will be first display, then second, then third. They are just making because it's a 2 years program. So in the end, when they have to display, that time they have to understand selection and arrangement of the work, which work will go first. If suppose any student is showing a journey of art, so that journey should be step by step, not first we will display a final stage, then before that stage like that, hodgepodge. So we have to go in a sequence manner whenever we are going with the selection of work to arrange for the exhibition.
So I think this is something we discussed when we were talking about selection and arrangement is when you created an X amount of artworks over a period of 2 years, what is the conscious decision that the student is taking to document that journey, right? It's not necessary that you created the first artwork, which was the best artwork. Would it be? Maybe not. Or sometimes the best artwork is the first artwork, and you might want to use it in your exhibition. Sometimes you might not want to use it in your exhibition. So that is something that needs to be thought about and addressed in the exhibition. Am I right? Is that what you wanted to say here, Stamita?
Yeah, sure. You're right.
Right. Can we move on?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, we spoke about the curatorial and we said every artwork must be supported with a blurb of not more than 500 characters. This is something we did speak about. Can we move to the next slide? Yeah, so there is no set format prescribed by the IB. You can exhibit in whatever way you are, or you can create your journal in whatever way you think is best for your students. There are no set or prescribed ways by the IB. But what we are discussing over here is from our experiences, what worked for us. They might work for you too. Very essential is to follow the criteria requirements and be as creative. So if you're addressing all the marking criteria and you're creatively presenting that information, that generally really works. What works for my students, like I said before, is that the marking criteria is on every slide. So it becomes easier for the examiner also to see, all right, so this is criteria A, the student has created all of this. It's just so much easier. The examiner doesn't have to look around to address the criteria. The examiner does in any case, but it just becomes easier for the examiner. A happy examiner, happy marking is what I tell my students. So if you make things easy for the examiner makes things easy for you.
I also want to add one point. I'm always suggesting my students go with the making criteria and the marking criteria.
Yeah.
Only making and marking both are interconnected. If you will make proper, they will mark you proper. So you have to go through both the things, making and marking.
Yeah, that's true. It becomes easier. So even the examiner is not missing out on any point, you see. It's in your face. The examiner cannot miss it, which is the best thing. And not that the examiner does, because there's a huge process for marking. I mean, the teacher marks, then the examiner marks, and then we have the chief examiner also going through. So it's a huge process. It's not just one teacher marking. And if the teacher has missed out, there's always another examiner who's overlooking the examiner's work. So that is a whole process. So don't think that it is done. You know, the IB takes a huge amount of time and effort to mark the student's work effectively and properly. But it's just that if it is done, if the work is made easy by the students, there is no missing out, and the student actually gets the marks that the student actually deserves. So like I said, happy examiner, happy marking. Right. And the whole point is to be creative. How creative can you get? How creative and how clear? Can we move to the next slide? Right, so we are with the question and answers here.
Right on time, I would say, Nirupama. And here we have a couple of questions for the speakers. But before that, I'll post in the feedback form link for everyone. And I would request to spare 2 minutes of your time to fill up the feedback form. This will help us understand your requirements and help us conduct more meaningful and effective sessions. So with this, there are a couple of questions that we have here. The first one was in the initial session, in the initial section of the presentation, where it was asked by Rose, the 3 art making forms are not required for 2022, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. Oh,
And she had a follow-up question. The number of artworks have changed for the 2022 exams. I think it was a follow-up of that.
number of artworks have changed for the
22 exams.
I think Mr. Amit,
I think the next IB guide, which is going to be updated, that will update in 2022. After that, we will see what the changes are there. But till 22, we have the same guideline, which we are following since 2017. So the next guide will, release in 2022. After that, we have to think for 23rd and next.
I think that was the message being delivered there, Amitabh. The next question is today, contemporary art practices. The solo show is presented with multiple mediums. Um, it is based on content and context. If student presents this, how would an IB examiner consider this?
As we discussed here, we were talking about the ideas, concept, and intention. If the intention is there for any exhibition work and the school is allowing, teacher is allowing, then there will be no issue, I think, because IB is accepting everything which is given there. Because as we can consider that IBDP program is kind of master degree. However, in college level, it is happening for the exhibition work. So there is no such kind of thing where a student can't go with a different kind of media or anything is restricted. Even it is written by the guide, by the IB, that school has to allow the thing. They are not restricting for anything. They can go with any media, any form.
Okay. Thank you, Amitabh. Another question from Rose. She asks, so if paintings are in the same style with the same theme but very different concepts, are they still considered the same?
Paintings are of the same.
Style with the same theme but very different concepts, are they still considered the same?
No, you have different concepts, right? You have different concepts and you've got different compositions. And how can they be the same?
Okay. And there's one question by Rose again. She asks, students will get marks for the quality of their photographs of their exhibition?
Yes, of course.
Okay. So this there's another question from Vaidehi, what says, can a student display his artwork away from the exhibition area if it's an outdoor kind of installation?
Sorry,
Yeah.
just 1 second. For the last question, when you say are the students marked for the quality of
The photographs.
for their exhibition, see,
Yeah.
it becomes easier for the examiner to see the artworks, how are they displayed. If you're giving fuzzy photographs, obviously the examiners cannot see. So quality is essential when you are submitting your work. Clarity and is important. Sorry, can we go on to the next question?
Yeah. The next question is, can a student display his artwork away from the exhibition area if it's an outdoor kind of installation?
Yes, of course, they can display because uh, there are options in uploading to photograph. But when with the exhibition work, there are two more options to upload. So a student can upload their one artwork as well as into supporting option. They can make a video, a small video, and they can add in the uploading.
Okay. There's one more long question. If a student has developed an idea in DP1 and has collected evidence for the same in the process portfolio, can that idea be changed in DP2? And how will he need to document that and under what criteria?
Amitabh, you're answering that?
Actually, I'm not getting very much clear point. What?
I'll repeat the question, Mr. Amitabh. It's a long one. There are a lot of questions hidden in this. So the idea is that if a student has developed an idea in DP1 and has also collected the evidence for the same in the process portfolio, can that idea be changed in DP2? That's the first question.
I don't think so. This is a good idea to change in DP2 because 2 years program is the one thing, not a two different thing which a student is doing separately in year one and doing in separately in year two. Both are interconnected. It's a one program. So a student has to start with one idea and that concept can change, but it will not suddenly change. It will just show the development, how a student is developing one form to another. So
Okay. So basically, you're trying to say that it can be modified.
modified. Yeah, it couldn't be changed.
Yes.
Suppose I'm telling you, any student started with landscape or something showing in means going with the journey of any those kind of artists, and they are developing their art form related to landscape. Suddenly in grade 12, they are going with the portraits and they are talking different kind of concept and idea. So this is not good idea. They have to show the shifting from one to another, and there should be link, the concept and everything And the connection should be from first to second year, should be visible in their courses portfolio, and the same journey of landscape to portrait, it should be interconnected.
Mm. So exactly that's what it is. So if the student, for example, is like Mr. Abitab said, has worked with landscapes and then wants to work on portraiture, now these are two different uh, areas that the person is working. So how can you interconnect them? You can use landscape as a background and add a person in it if you want to. You know, those are the things that you need to kind of show the linking between the two areas that you want to work with. But if it is thematic, if you're looking at a theme, if you're working on one theme in DP1 and then you're looking at another theme in DP2, which are not connected, then it doesn't really work for you, because how are you going to be showing a development of your thought process, right? That disconnect is where the problem happens. So it is.
Sorry.
Yeah, no,
Example, Farida Kahlo, some of artwork we can see where there is some background with the greenery and the portrait. So that is a connection. We can show a portrait and the landscape together, but there should be one theme which a student has to show.
yeah, for example, looking at Farida Kahlo's work also, hers is all very surreal. She's commenting on her physical and emotional journey. So her whole body of work talks about that, right? And within that, she's got landscape and she's got portraiture and she's got figurative and she's got a certain element of still life also going on. So there is animal art also in it. So there are a lot of things that are going on within that whole body of work, which again is thematic. So there is a development from one thought process to the other, and that development is something which is very, very clear. And that is what the student needs to also understand and work accordingly. I hope that has answered the question.
I think so. With Frida there, Frida already explains a lot of things.
Yeah.
The whole idea of Frida, the body, the animals, the pain, Mr. Rivera, all of that there about her life and everything. Yes, I would say. Let's move on to the next question. We have Day, that's the name I'm getting, asking, can we go with all three components, CS, PP, and exhibition from DP1 and DP2? Which will be better? Could you provide your 2 years of program design or scheme of work of the 2 years program? This is how the question goes.
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yes. So the question says, can we go with all three components, CS, PP, and exhibition from DP1 and DP2?
I think it's an individual choice of teachers and a student discussion how they are going, because I don't think so everyone is following the same rule. I can share my how I start with. Uh, Normally, I start with the visual art journal, because journal is 2 years program thing which is given in the guideline. Student has to follow visual art journal 2 years. So I start with the journal. I'm telling them to go with the research of some artist, artwork, and then start writing their journal. And then first-hand observation, then each and everything in the journal. Then in the same first semester, I suggest them to start their comparative study, whatever artist they had selected. They should start with one or two artwork for comparative study. And in the second semester, I'm telling them to start with your exhibition piece. And visual art journals with my student is going till 2 years. And in the grade 12, I'm telling them to start developing their process portfolio in the third semester. So every teacher has a different way of making and dividing the whole three components according to their core semester. I'm always keeping last fourth semester in hand for refining, reflecting for all three components. Ma'am, you can also share your.
I do the same. We're working on the journal, but I do skill development in my first semester. And then I move on to, while I'm doing skill development, within that, we have artist research going on. And we do have, I don't start with the CS in the first term, but I do get them to mark different CS for them to really understand what the marking criteria is. Why does a student get a 4? Why does a student get a 6? And why does a student get a 7? So I do share 3 different CS examples with them, which they mark and they understand, and then there's discussions. So basically the first semester is a lot to do with skill development, understanding of the criterias. Second semester, we do get on with our journal development, and by the third semester, exhibition works have started. 2 artists for CS are already done. And during the summer, I get them to finish off with their first draft of the CS. And during the summer break, I get them to do 2 artworks for that exhibition also. So my students are working right through the summer also. There is no break. I tell them, I said, you're in the DP, sorry, no holidays. I'm just a hard taskmaster, sorry. But that kind of really helps them in a way.
Being an IB facilitator, I think you need to be one.
Yeah, it helps them. I mean, we kind of crack the whip on the first 2 years, and then they sail through their life, really. That is something that is essential.
Means being an IB facilitator, I would say that it's important to be a rigid taskmaster, but not a rigid person.
Yeah.
At times, we do need to, consider the specific, I think, personal.
Yeah. As a teacher, I do spend a lot of time with my students. My art room is forever buzzing, whether it is lunch break. I do a lot of after schools. So, I mean, there are times when I'm with my students till even 7 in the evening. It just depends what the students are like. And we have a lot of workshops. So my students are really pushed in every different possible way. We do also organize for different artists to come in and share their experiences, do workshops with the students. So they're not just looking at you as a facilitator, we also get other facilitators in to help them develop their skills, their techniques, and also practicing artists share how they develop their ideas. So there's a lot of things that the students actually get in the DP program, and that's how they really develop into critical thinkers and are able to document their thought processes very clearly.
And also, I would say that when you're mentioning this, that you have visits from artists, I would say it helps them in that process of the whole idea, the whole ideology of experiential learning and becoming global citizens at the same time, relating to the real life world out there, the whole experience of the core fitting in right there. So, yes, I think that's a very good practice. There's one more question that says, what if I'm only able to submit 1 or 2 of the 3 visual arts course components?
What do you mean by that? You will not pass it. I mean, you'll get that if you're giving only your CS, then you're marked only for the 20%. You lose out on the 80%.
So yes, all the components would definitely need to be submitted.
Yeah.
There's one more question. I don't think I understand it much, but I'll repeat it. I might not be there in the context. So it's a day again. The question is, I can't get the photos of resolved work that I would have used for criterion F of the comparative study.
I can't get the resolved work.
I can't get the photos of resolved work that I would have used for criterion F of the comparative study.
obviously a student will get less marks in that criteria.
Yeah,
Okay, so it meant that.
it
Okay.
has been addressed, right? Where is the proof of the work? So that student actually loses 12 marks. Am I right? That's 12 marks, I think.
And I also think it's very important to understand that we, as IB facilitators, all of us present here, should know that IB, the whole IB world is based on evidencing. So, evidence is the, I would say, the most crucial part of whatever you are doing with the students, and it is our responsibility, I would say, as facilitators, to make sure that the students do understand the requirements of the evidencing process. The whole process has to be evidenced, I would say, but it has to be elaborated so that the moment we mention the examiners don't know our students personally or us as facilitators personally at times. So that is very important, that the examiner would have to only depend on the evidence that we are producing. So yes, as IB facilitators, anywhere the evidence goes as the most important, the most crucial part of the journey.
There is something I think I read about teachers saying that I am at home and I don't have any mediums or any materials to work with. Now, again, this is where you are being creative, right? Um, you have flour at home. You can get creative with flour. You've got potatoes for printmaking. You've got styrofoam maybe at home. You've got plates. I mean, they dig in, see what can you use at home to be creative. You don't have to, you could be painting with coffee, you could be painting with food coloring. I mean, it's not necessary that you have to use oil paints or acrylics. So this is where creativity comes in. How are you going to use what you have to be creative? Now, if you're looking at cave art also, what did they use? They used charcoal sticks and they used blood from beetles, for instance, or things like that. Be creative. See what you've got around you. I mean, I think it's just making excuses when you say I don't have material to be creative. Really, back up and
Even
sorry.
yes, even I was saying now we can't say the restriction of material. We can use plastic, paper, rubber,
Anything.
rope, wire, anything. Because a student has to show, because this is not the time when we don't have any support thing. We can see a lot of different kind of forms of art which we can find on the digital portal where artists are using. So installation is a good way. Anything you can install. We have so many artist examples, such as Subodh Gupta, who is using utensils and other kind of things to show his artwork. Similarly, a student can also go with different form of art with different materials.
I see somebody asking about my school is closed. How can I have an exhibition? Well, you don't have to have an exhibition at home now. Because of COVID, things have become easier with IBDP. The students need to exhibit their work in their homes, find a place where they can exhibit their work and upload that.
Yeah, someone is asking, how do you feel about found object? Yeah, that is, we were talking, found object can be also used in the exhibition pieces. It is clearly given in the guideline.
Yeah.
But the student has to go with the idea, concept, and intention, not any found object they can put and they can say this is my artwork. They have to write the concept and idea with the proper intention.
I would like to share an experience. The moment we are talking about found object, I would like to add the word intentionally as well there. When you were mentioning, let's say pick up something which is lying around, just visit the storeroom of your house. The intentionally found objects might help you a lot. There's a personal experience. I'm a Spanish interpreter as well, or I was a Spanish interpreter as well. So once I was invited for an interpretation of this renowned Spanish ceramic artist who was visiting Delhi on this international conference. So he was giving a talk here in MG Road, and I was supposed to interpret his whole presentation, the talk that he was talking about. He was 80 years old, Mr. Gerardo from Spain. And once the talk was over of 2 hours, he started roaming around in the complex that we were doing the talk in, and he just started going here and there beyond the path, under the trees, and everything. And he had this small bag, and he started picking up random, those twigs, leaves. Shells, started putting them all in his bag. So I got curious and I asked him, Mr. Gerardo, what is this about? And he's like, oh, you have not seen my artwork. And he is one of the most renowned ceramic artists of Spain. What he did was he picked up almost everything, like a walnut shell. He filled it up with ceramic and he burnt it in the kiln. So the shape that came out was in the shape of an embryo. So he actually named all of it footprints of nature in Spanish, huellas de la naturaleza. And his work is on display. He picks those 100-year-old trees. He makes those simple clay tablets, pastes them all over the trunk of the tree, takes them out, puts them in the kiln, and then makes a painting out of it like an artwork. So it's such an inspiring work. So that's why I mentioned you have to find the object at times, or found objects can be intentional as well.
Yeah, so this is on the onus lies on the teacher over here. And your first unit could be create work from found objects. That could be a unit on its own. That could be a starter point for you as a teacher, and that would help students to actually think beyond what is traditionally taught. You know, we as facilitators need to open our students' mind for them to look around what is happening. How do you create something out of nothing? And that is where the skill really lies. That is where you are a teacher to take your student far, right?
So we are trying to fit it all inside the time slot that we provided. There is a question again, how do we handle it if the student has chosen a medium that we are not good at, for example, digital art or sculpture?
Well, today Google is fantastic. YouTube, come on, use the digital media for something that you're not good at. Why shouldn't you? I do
Okay.
that. I'm not good with digital media, but my students are fabulous. Why? Because I provided them with sites that they can get onto and learn. And so many of them have taught me. So I said, well, you're a teacher and I'm a teacher. We'll teach each other. That's how it works.
Lifelong learners.
Yeah.
So the last question here, according to my list, there are more pouring in. In the CSHL, how could we engage with teaching and learning the program? Is it good approach to start with criterion F? What about double dipping? Please share your thoughts.
Uh, Actually, if we will go through the guideline, in the 2016 we had a visual art guide, and next year in 2017 again we have new visual art guideline. So in 16 guideline it was given about double dipping, but in 17 it is removed about the double dipping. So a student can use the same thing on 2, 3 different with the different components, but not in the same way. Suppose if I am writing 2 lines, the same 2 lines I can't paste 2 different components. But the essence of the thing we can write in a different component. So that will be not called double dipping as of now after 2017. So a student who is displaying their work in exhibition, the same work progress, even their final work of exhibition, they can put in the process portfolio, but they have to mention this is exhibition work.
Yeah.
So this is not called double dipping. No.
There was a question, what if the file size is quite big? I've already answered it in the chat, but I might have taken it in the wrong phase because I might not know much. So the question was, what if the file sizes are too big? I have said that you can easily use some online softwares to reduce the file size without affecting the quality. I hope I have been able to.
See, what is advisable is the images. Usually what happens is that the images that the students are using are very big file sizes. So if they have Photoshop, fantastic, they can use, there is on Photoshop, they can actually reduce the file size to 72 for web purposes, and they can use those. So basically, if your images are not large, then your file size doesn't become big. That is one way of working.
Or I would suggest here to use Handbrake. I have already posted the name there. This is a very small technical issue that I also face at times. Handbrake is the process, not really the software. So the moment you type Handbrake in Google, Google will provide you with multiple online software that can reduce your file size without affecting the quality of the image. And with this, I don't think we have any more questions. And with this, I would like to conclude the session. Thank you, Mr. Tab. Thank you, Ms. Nirupama. We will be providing you with the recording of the session, audience, to your registered email ID. I hope you have all filled up the feedback form. It was amazing to hear from both of you, the speakers. It was a great chat today in the evening. And thank you once again from the part of Art Journal Foundation. And that would be it from my side. If you have anything to add, you can go ahead.
Thank you so much, Art Journal Foundation, and thank you, Rahul. I would like to add something here. I do mentor teachers. If anybody is interested, they can get in touch with me. I'm happy to do that. And yes, over to you, Amitabh. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure being on the chat.
Thank you so much, everyone, to be here. And I think there are many questions. I was going through the question and I was trying to give some reply, but we don't have such time. That's why we have to go. But you can be in touch. We can discuss more and we can find out the way, because we all are on the same boat. We all are the IB teacher and we know problems, and we have to find out the solution, which IB is saying we have to find ourselves. Thank you so much, and we can meet again on the same platform or another platform.
Thank you. Rose, I have posted the feedback form link again. And Mr. Amitabh, what happens is that if there are any unanswered questions, we would like to request the audience to send them to us through our email, and we will pass them on to you. We will get in touch with your responses. We would try our best to not let any question go unanswered.
Have a lovely evening, lovely morning, and a great afternoon wherever you are.
Thank you.
All cheers.